Over the past few weeks, a lot of you have been sending me questions about different parts of the Canadiens game. What's wrong with the penalty kill? Why does it struggle? Why do we have so many problems during the second period? And why can't we get shots on goal? Well, I broke that down. It took me a while. But let's talk some puck. Hey gang, welcome to the Sunday night edition of PuckTalk Montreal. I am, of course, Costa Papulias. It's January 18th, 2026. The Habs are coming off a win versus the Ottawa Senators in epic comeback fashion, but there's still a lot of questions. The Montreal Canadiens right now are struggling. A lot of that has to do with a compressed schedule and fatigue, but there are parts of their game that can really fix. And now a lot of you have been sending me questions and comments. Some I've gotten by email from a gentleman by the name of Lori, as an example, and some I've gotten in the comments to certain videos. I sat down and I crunched the most important ones. There's 4 of them, plus one I really broke down a little bit more in depth. And the one thing I realized is I needed to break it down a little bit less because I was going to be sitting here for 4 hours and probably would have bored you to death. But instead, I put it in a way that you guys are comfortable with. It's kind of like the 5-point play, where I break it down in a way that's simple yet effective. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Now, number one, which was asked not only by Aces on the comments, but by a few other people, and that is about the penalty kill and why the penalty kill struggles so much. Well, a lot of that has to do with 5-on-5 as well, because there's questions in players' heads. So how do you fix the PK? Well, number one, you got to clean up your defensive zone coverage reactions, okay, and your reads. A lot of times, the players get overly aggressive. The Canadiens' PK has been very vulnerable to east-west puck movement, especially when the low forward overcommits. And so when that happens, you end up opening up a gap that allows this cross-seam pass to get through. Tightening those reads between the strong side defenseman and the low forward would probably help close that gap. And the strong side forward, of course, defenseman is, of course, the defenseman that's on the puck side, not the opposite side, which is referred to as the weak side. When you have those 2 points present, the low forward and the strong side defenseman, one pressures, the other one protects the seam, right? As I've mentioned before, for the power play, it's all about creating odd man situations that are to your advantage. And I know in the penalty kill, it's harder to do than you think. But there are situations where players get into corners or areas on the ice where they limit the amount of space they have, like the point along the boards, where you can pressure the puck. And that's a key component. Have a guy pressure the puck and have a guy there protecting the seam. If you do that, then you eliminate the east-west passes and you tend to keep the power play of the opposing team a little bit more simple. You've got to be more aggressive on their first pass as well. Too often, Montreal sits back and waits for the other opponent, for the other team to set up cleanly. If they get onto the puck carrier more quickly, which we see from other teams. The Canadiens, like, for example, Lane Hudson will have the puck at the point. He'll start to shimmy around, but there's a player right on him. Not giving him a lot of time and space and forcing him to make a play that's a little bit less comfortable than he would like. So when you get that quicker first pass trigger, like at the blue line, it forces rush decisions and it disrupts zone entries. And when you do that, it in and of itself can save you up to 10 to 15 seconds on the power play and kill off a lot of time because you're forcing the opposing player to make moves and try to shimmy to create space that he doesn't already have. Another thing that we've struggled with on the penalty kill was faceoffs. Now, granted, the acquisition of Philip Deneau has increased that faceoff percentage, and the return of Jake Evans will do that as well because he's been so good historically at winning faceoffs on the penalty kill. It sounds kind of basic, but it's a huge part of the penalty kill. Getting possession of the puck inside your own zone or even in the opposition's zone is key. It allows you to get the puck and dump it down the ice, or it allows you to keep control of the puck in the offensive zone and perhaps cycle it down low, killing even more time. The other thing too is being prepared for faceoffs is kind of important as well. There are faceoff plays for wins, there are face-off plays for losses. And those plays are key when it comes to executing on the penalty kill. So it's not only about the win, it's about the face-off execution, win or loss. That's got to get better for the Canadiens as well. Another thing that we noticed that the Canadiens are relatively good at but need to be better at is their stick positioning. It may seem like a useless point to a lot of people, but when you have your stick in the right lane, you cut off a lot of passes. Most goals against aren't screenshots. They're what we call royal road passes, which is your east-west, cross ice, cross seam, whatever name you want to give it. Having active sticks from the high forwards, the guys that are up high near the point or in between the hash marks, is extremely important to be able to mitigate those passes, right? Not just the puck pressure, but being able to close off those lanes, having a stick there so that when the pass comes, it hits a stick and goes out of play, or perhaps, it dies on the player's stick and he can clear it down the ice. It's really, really important. So one of the things that you want to avoid, I don't care as a penalty killer, as an example, as a coach, right? I don't care if as a penalty killer, you keep your puck to the inside and you allow passes on the perimeter. I don't. Why? Because on the perimeter, your goaltender should stop the majority of shots. Granted, occasionally, some of them filter through. It's all about percentages, right? But you want to mitigate those high scoring chances from the slot. So in order to do that, your active stick has to be in the middle. So always facing in between the dots. I don't care if it goes down to the corner. I don't care if it goes below the goal line. What I care about is that the middle of the ice is protected. So when you're down a man, active stick in the high pressure zone. And then finally, we've talked about this ad nauseum when it comes to the recent results that the Canadiens have gotten. That's fatigue. And that plays a big part in the penalty kill. When you're short a man, you have to move a little bit faster, you have to move a little bit quicker, and most importantly, you have to move a little bit longer. Oftentimes, teams keep the puck away from penalty killers in order to fatigue them and create better opportunities. So that fatigue is a big part of it. You want to try to keep your penalty killing shifts under 35 seconds. If you can't do that, then with the active sticks and the puck pressure early on, that should be able to fix that problem. You get the puck, you fire it down the ice, and you go to the bench on a change. Easy enough, right? If you put it into your head, but if the puck pressure is not there, then those under 35 second shifts on the penalty kill are non-existent. So you absolutely need to be pressuring the puck to mitigate the amount of fatigue players suffer during the penalty kill. So those are your 5 points. Tighter zone coverage, faster puck pressure, win more faceoffs while shorthanded, improve stick positioning in passing lanes, and shorter, more energetic penalty kill shifts. They go hand in hand. It's really important, right? That will help the penalty kill. For the most part, the team's really good at it. They're not bad, right? But there are small things like these 5 issues that the Canadiens need to shore up and clean up. If they can do that, then, well, things will be better. And I hope this answers your questions when it comes to the penalty kill. But if there's something more you want, be specific, put it in the comments. I will gladly answer. And I don't want to do this and make it the most boring segment in the world, because God knows I'm like that too. Somebody starts talking about a subject that I'm not interested in, and I want to fall asleep. That being said, before we go any further, don't forget, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, be sure to hit the notification bell so you get all the latest and greatest from the channel, including something like this, although I'll try to keep it short and sweet for you. Now, getting back to our breakdown, next up we have the issues with the second period, which has been the Canadiens' Achilles heel all season long. Yes, they've had success in certain games versus lesser opponents, but against teams that have more structure and more energy than the Canadiens, boy, oh boy, is that second period lethal. Just last night versus the Ottawa Senators, 4 goals in the second period. If that doesn't tell you you have a problem, nothing will. So let's get to it. It starts first with the line change explosion matchup issues. The second period long change hurts teams all the time. They aren't clean. They aren't easy. They're difficult. And why is that? Because a lot of times the Canadiens make themselves vulnerable by mistiming their changes. So instead of getting up beyond the red line, dumping it in, and going to the bench right away, which is on the offensive zone side of the ice, the Canadiens will dump the puck out from their own zone and try to get to the bench. It's a longer distance. If you move up as a group and you make it quick when you get up there, you'll be able to get it in and you'll be able to make the change without a lot of problems. A lot of times, also, when it's a long change, defensemen get caught deep. Now, the way to fix that problem is to make sure that the defensemen change one at a time. It's not ideal. But in the second period, if you can't change together as a pair, then one at a time has to work. And the way you do that is relatively simple. You get a forward to take the puck across the red line and dump it in. The defenseman who is on the closest side to the bench changes first. And when he changes, his partner rotates over to that side as the player that comes off the bench goes over to the far side. As he does that, when the puck is back on the Canadian stick or they have control of it, the second defenseman goes and changes. It's relatively simple. They never do it. Okay? It's not a hard process to follow. And finally, what players do is they exploit tired players. And how they do that is when a team has possession in the offensive zone long term and the Canadiens are defending, they end up staying in the zone a little bit too long. So they're really, really gassed. You got guys out there that are out there for a minute 45, 2 minutes almost, and finally they get the puck and they clear it up the ice. That stupid lob pass, they'll dump it out, try to get it down into the opposition zone. They'll take an unnecessary icing, stuff like that. And then they get back into the same situation once again. The whole idea here is you got to stop that. When you get fatigued players on the ice, right, there's two things you can do. You can bite the bullet and expend a little bit more energy than you like and get the puck up the ice and deep and make the change. But always change your defenseman first. Even if your forwards are fatigued, the guys that have the most difficulty getting off the ice are your D. So when the D can't get off, the forwards have to stay on a wee bit longer to allow those D off. So when the opponent exploits those tired players, you got to do what you have to do to be able to avoid any quick counterattacks, especially when you're making those line changes. All these things often lead to extended defensive zone stays, and that in and of itself is the biggest deal breaker when it comes to the long change and the matchup issues. That kills the second period in every game. But it's not the only thing. Next up is your momentum swings, right? Especially after the intermission. We saw it against Ottawa. The Canadiens had a 2-0 lead. All of a sudden, Ottawa was a different team. You go into the locker room, they're able to regroup, and especially during the long change, they take advantage of it. Why? Because the team will adjust their forecheck and become more physical, like they did versus Montreal, forcing them to the outside. They'll increase the pace, again, like Ottawa did versus Montreal, also what Detroit did, where they continue to push the pace, forcing the Canadiens to skate and get more fatigued more quickly. And they take control early in the period, right? Especially in the second. When the team comes out and they're energized and fresh and ready to go, it's much like we say in the first period. You got to win the first 10 minutes. Well, in the second period, if you know you're having issues, you got to win those first 10 minutes to get the other team off their game and let them know, hey, I'm here and I'm playing. So the result of the other team adjusting their forecheck, increasing the pace, and taking control early in the period is you're chasing the game instead of controlling it. And that's where Montreal gets behind the 8 ball. They just can't seem to control that second period. When they do, they have success. But those instances are few and far between. You also have difficulty handling sustained pressure. And this comes back to the Canadiens playing man-to-man and burning a lot of energy in the defensive zone. The second periods frequently feature the Canadiens defending for long stretches. And the problem with that is because you're playing man-to-man and you're switching up and you're constantly in movement, there's a lot of things that happen. Number one, there's poor wall support. You end up skating in the middle of the ice, allowing the outside to everybody, and you're not finishing body checks. If you're not punishing your opponent, you're allowing them to take advantage of you. Number two, clears are incomplete. Just the other day against Ottawa, again, we saw Philip Deneau get tripped up on an attempt to try to clear the zone when they couldn't. When did that happen? The second period. And oftentimes collapsing down low too much in the defensive zone for forwards can really cause a problem because you're forcing yourself to go up and down in coverage. And that in and of itself can cause problems. So once you're pinned, fatigue builds quickly. And so you got to mitigate the amount of time that you're pinned in your own zone. Now, I know you're going to say, well, the Canadiens should stop playing man-to-man. Well, right now, it's a system they're playing, and they're playing it relatively well. It's just a question of adapting it to what's going on in the second period and the control that other teams seem to take. There's also the riskier puck management in the neutral zone. And what I mean by that is, we know that the Canadiens like to push the pace and the Canadiens like to attack with speed. But oftentimes when you give up the puck in the neutral zone, especially when you have the long change coming up, it can be lethal. We all scream at the screen saying, stop turning pucks over at the offensive blue line. Why? Because especially during the second period, the offensive blue line is actually where your bench is. And that's where you're making changes. You have control of the puck, you bring it into the zone, you try to get it deep, and you try to make a line change. But the problem is that you turn it over at the offensive blue line, and that turns into odd man Russia's going the other way. And that generates immediate reentries for your opponent. What does that do? It burns energy, it fatigues you. And again, it gives you that difficulty getting the line change done in the second period. So those long changes magnify the cost of every mistake you make inside the neutral zone and at the offensive blue line. So you have to be better at puck management. And the last thing is, your goaltenders tend to face a lot of high danger chances in the second period. Why is that? It's not always about the volume of shots, although the Canadiens do give up a lot of shots in the second period. It's about timing and quality. And the reason why the Canadiens goaltenders face so many shots in the second period is because opposing teams get back-to-back grade A chances. East-west puck movement. When you're fatigued, you tend to make mistakes on where your sticks are and where you are in coverage. And then broken coverage often creates, again, extended shifts. So you have to make sure that your goals against doesn't get overly inflated based on the fact that your overall shot up output in the second period is mismanaged. If you keep teams on the perimeter, as an example, and outside the high danger area, which is normally the house, the slot, whatever you want to call it, you tend to have better results. Shots from the outside, a lot of times goalies take care of them. They're one and done. They get the puck, they freeze it. You end up with a face-off. But shots from high danger areas, especially in the slot, normally generate rebound opportunities. Teams will crash the net. They'll come in. They'll try hard to get those second chance opportunities. Again, creating fatigue during the second period. Get away from those habits, and you're going to be better. Now, I mentioned this as well at the beginning when I was talking about the second period, but I also mentioned this because it's an extremely big problem for the Canadiens, and it has been for years. Not only under Marty St. Louis, under other coaches as well. And I try to understand why, but it just doesn't, I can't pinpoint why they're having so many issues. What I can do is I can explain why they're having those issues, and that is the long change itself. It's the bane of the existence of every team in hockey. I'll give you an example. I work with junior teams, as I always tell you. I work with the Hawkesbury Knights and the St. Lazare Avalanche of the USPHL Premier League. There is a team in that league that plays out of the Chenier Arena in Anjou. That arena was built for figure skating. So the benches aren't between the blue line and the red line. They aren't even halfway. They're all the way in the offensive zones. So when you need to make the long change in the second period, it's extremely long. Literally from the corner of the rink all the way back to your own zone. So the focus on these particular areas, which are things that I've actually pointed out to these guys and will continue to talk about, is really important. It starts with hesitation when you go to change. You either go or you don't. You can't catch yourself halfway, because then you get caught up ice and the odd man rush comes your way, especially in the second period, because the players are so much further from the bench. The biggest problem for Montreal isn't about the effort to get to the bench. It's about the indecision, right? So half changes instead of full changes, for example. You get halfway up, you stop, you turn back. That's a problem. It can lead to too many men on the ice, for number one. Then you've got players staying on one shift that's too long. The shift that's 2.5 minutes to 3, because you get pinned in your own zone. And then there's defensemen that pinch with tired legs. And we've seen that quite a few times, whether it's from Mike Matheson, Alexander Carrier. You know what I'm getting at because we've yelled at them I don't know how many times. That hesitation leads directly to blown coverages and to problems with the line change. Be decisive. You're going to go. If you're a defenseman, you're going to go, get to the red line, dump the puck softly into the corner. Don't rim it hard. Don't wind up for a slap shot and have it come back quickly. Give yourself time. Dump it softly into a corner, especially if it's furthest away from your bench, and then go to the bench on a change. Again, the defensemen hold on to the puck too long, right? They wait. And clean changes require quick puck movement. You get the puck from your zone up to the forwards, soft dump into the corner, line change is made. You wait for the perfect outlet way too many times as a defenseman. That's totally wrong. The idea is get the change in. Don't worry about perfection. There's no such thing in the game of hockey. There's a beautiful passing play. It's not perfect. Why? Because the defending team makes a mistake. The perfect passing play, the perfect play in and of itself doesn't exist. The perfect shot doesn't exist if a goaltender covers his angles properly. As an example, everything that happens in the game of hockey is based off of mistakes. If every game was perfect, we'd be going to shootouts every bloody hockey game. Remember that. It's really important. So waiting for the perfect outlet isn't the right idea. What happens is the defenseman gets pressured before they move the puck. That forces them to rim it in a little bit too hard than they'd like, sometimes taking icing calls, other times having the puck turned back the other way too quick in transition and getting them caught. So it's important to not just wait for the perfect outlet, but be sure to make a good first pass out of the zone, get to the red line as cleanly as possible, and then flip the puck in deep to make the line change. It's the most important part of the whole process. Another thing that causes those long line changes is support from your forwards low in the defensive zone. It's kind of important. Why? Because on the long change, defensemen get fatigued. How many times have we seen the graphic on the screen where Mike Matheson's on the ice for 2 minutes, Noah Dobson's on the ice for 2 minutes? As I've always stated, the game of hockey is played on odd man situations, creating a situation that gives you an advantage on the ice. And so when the forward support is weak in the defensive zone, when the centers come in late on support, when the wingers are flying the zone early, so jumping out, expecting the puck to come to them when you don't even have possession, and no clean D to forward handoff happens, that's when you have issues. And that all starts with bad support from your forwards, especially down low. Your defenseman needs a quick outlet. So if a defenseman's along the boards looking for somewhere to pass the puck, he's not necessarily looking to go D to D twice and 3 times and 4 times to try to get the puck up the ice. That normally doesn't work, right? Because the opposing team will drop a second forechecker and all of a sudden you're in deep trouble. When your forwards jump the zone and there's only one guy in, you're in trouble. It's okay to jump one, okay? And normally that one is on the weak side. He's not where the puck is. He's over on the far side. You jump him to try to open up the defense a little bit. That's fine. But normally you keep that support down low in tight. So you have a guy at the hash marks. You have your F1 deep in the zone along with the defenseman to try to get support on the puck and move it up quickly and smoothly. If that's not there, you get extended shifts. And when you get extended shifts, especially in the second period, you end up on the wrong side of a line change. There's also the big problem that Montreal has with poor changes that are made with bad timing because of failed clears. After one failed clear, the Canadiens often try to change anyway. That's a mistake. One player goes on and stays on, creates momentary coverage gaps, and the opponents attack that immediately. Okay? So good teams abort the change. Montreal hasn't been consistent with that read, right? So if you give away the puck and try to change anyway, you're giving the other team an odd man opportunity right away. You're leaving that gap. So instead of you gave away the puck, do what you're taught from when you're really young. Fix the mistake. You gave away the puck, go get it back. Or at the very least, help get it back. Once you have possession, then worry about the change. I mean, those are the biggest things when it comes to line changes in the second period. And line changes in the second period and the issues that the Canadiens have over and over, they lead to sustained pressure by the opposition and issues with the Canadiens getting 4 shots on goal like they did on Saturday. Now, getting to that 4 goals on Saturday part, come to my next point, which you guys ask a lot about, and that is shot output and why they aren't there. Now, I know that during the live show on Friday, I got into it with Joe Luna about, it's not about Marty St. Louis, and it's not, especially not when it comes to shot selection. That's all about the player. Or maybe not the player, but the player's constitution. So there's a few reasons why the shot's on there. Number one, it starts with the fact that the Canadiens play too much on the perimeter and there's not enough slot presence. When the Canadiens do get slot presence and shoot the puck, we've seen the success they have. Okay? When they get in between the dots, when they drive the net, when they do all the right things, the Canadiens put the puck in the net. There's no doubt about it. But when they generate possession, it's always along the perimeter and never from dangerous positioning. The shots come from the boards of the blue line. There's very little as far as net front presence, and there's no screen. And then the opponents just collapse easily because no one is there to contest them. So the result, the shot totals and shot quality suffer. When the Canadiens get into those areas and get shots from the slot, inside the dots, from at the top of the faceoff circle, you see them generate good scoring opportunities, you see them score goals, and you see them have the ability to get people to the front of the net to screen the goaltender. But for some reason, outside of anybody's control, the players decide they want to play more on the perimeter. That's a mistake, and that's part of the reason why the shots are not coming for the Canadiens. There's also periods of the game where puck movement is slow, where players over-carry the puck. And when that happens, then you tend to make mistakes. An extra pass instead of a shot, that slows things down. Late decisions, let defenders take the puck away, taking away your shot opportunity. And power play habits, leaking into 5-on-5 play, where on the power play, you keep the puck along the perimeter too long and you don't get them into the bumper, for example, like they did with Slavkovsky. I've called for it a million times, get the puck into the bumper on the power play. When they do it, it works. And it's the same thing at 5-on-5. You don't have to just limit yourself to that. Yes, you have less space, but the premise is still the same. You still want to get that guy in there. Even guys that skate the puck into the zone, instead of taking the ice they give you, cut towards the inside. Kovalev famously used to do that. Skate along the right side, fake out, come in, and take a shot. A lot of Canadiens don't do that. Instead, they're looking for perfection. And as I already stated, perfection does not exist. So by the time the puck moves, your window to shoot is gone. So stop looking for perfection. Shoot the damn puck. Also, a weak forecheck can limit your shot volume because oftentimes when you struggle on the forecheck, you don't have possession of the puck and you don't create those chances that the other team isn't expecting. And Montreal's no exception to that. F1's pressure on the puck isn't consistent. We've seen plays where, let's say, for example, Caulfield comes in or Texier comes in or even Kapanen. And instead of getting in there hard and finishing their body check, leading with their stick and trying to take the puck away, they curl and they turn away. The pucks don't get recovered quickly enough because of that. And the zone time ends much faster without getting that shot opportunity to come and the shots don't pile up. So no puck retrieval equals no repeat shots available and a shot attempts. So that's a problem. If you get it on the forecheck, you finish the body check, you get possession of the puck, you move it out into the slot for a shot opportunity. It's hockey 101, but for some reason the Canadiens just don't do it. There's also poor neutral zone transitions. We know the Canadiens thrive on moving the puck through the neutral zone quickly, right? When they transition the puck up the ice fast and catch the other team off guard, it's great. But then they end up going to the outside. So The whole thing is the Canadiens don't enter cleanly enough to be able to get those shot opportunities. They dump in without support. So even when they rim the puck and they send it hard off the boards, normally when you do that, you want to have two guys in support on the opposite side. So they can come in, one guy seals the boards, the other guy picks up the puck. Doesn't happen. Right? Instead, we get slow support coming across and we wait. There's a problem. Controlled entries stall along the wall. We've seen that happen all too many times where the Canadiens come in along the half wall, they get angled out, bumped into the boards, puck goes the other way. And then turnovers in the mid-ice lanes they're crazy, right? You have those turnovers happen before the mid-ice lane opens, and it drives teams nuts because it stalls you right away. So you can't get those transition opportunities into the zone, you can't get clear puck zone entries, and you can't get shots on goal. So bad entries lead to one-and-done possessions instead of sustained pressure. When you have sustained pressure, you end up getting more than one opportunity on the net. And then finally, very low shooting mentality on the Canadiens. While they have guys that can finish, they don't have enough pure shooters on the team, like a Patrick Laine, for example. And for as much as people are maligned against Laine and the way he plays the game, you need players like that on your team. Not necessarily as bad defensively as Laine has been historically, but you need a guy who, when the puck's on his stick, he lets it rip. Okay? So players are looking too much for those finesse passes. Again, those perfect plays. Stop. They pass up grade A and grade B shooting opportunities that create rebounds, and they lack the throw it at the net urgency. If there's one thing that we've noticed, especially in games where the Canadiens have come back, they just keep throwing pucks on net, especially when they pull the goaltender, right? The shot that got through on the fourth goal that Slavkovsky scored on Saturday. It wasn't on goal, but it was a shot that got through that Slavkovsky deflected on goal. That's exactly the opportunity that you're looking for. You're not looking for the perfect shot. You're looking for the puck to get through to generate a scoring chance. Simple. It became a shot on goal when it was deflected by Slavkovsky. It doesn't necessarily have to be a shot on goal when it comes off your player's stick. So teams that shoot a lot create chaos first. And that's what the Canadiens need to do, especially during the second period. Fatigue after a long defensive shift. That's another one that's really, really a problem for the Canadiens. Those extensive zone shifts, especially in the second period, they lead to late changes, dump and change offense, and no energy off the rush. And when that happens, well, I don't need to go any further than that. We already know. No shots on goal. And the last thing is your roster constitution is made up of way too many playmakers. And we know that's the case with Montreal, right? We've seen it with Demidov, passing first mentality. We've seen it with Suzuki. He's got a pass first mentality. Same holds true for Tessier. He isn't a pure shooter, right? Only Caulfield is. You don't have enough of those when it comes to generating shots. And even Caulfield tends to pass the puck more now than he did before. Why? Because you're putting him in positions, especially on the power play, where he's down low instead of at the hash marks, where he can step in, get inside the dot, and take a shot on goal where he's most dangerous. So there is why we don't have as many shots as we normally do. Then comes the difference between the power play and 5-on-5 when it comes to shots. Well, why do we have low shot output at 5-on-5? Well, you struggle to generate shots because your offense is perimeter heavy. Shots come from the outside with no net front presence. And that creates a one-and-done opportunity like we talked about. Right? You got those one-and-done possessions. They never help you. Overpassing. God, have we seen that, where the puck just keeps going around the perimeter and nobody wants to shoot the puck. It's like playing hot potato. Shoot the damn thing. Even if you're Lane Hudson, who doesn't have the hardest shot in the world, shoot the damn puck. Poor entries in the zone, weak forecheck, they all lead to the fact that the 5-on-5, you don't get shots on goal. And then there's the fatigue factor, as I mentioned. Long changes, especially in the second period. You dump and change offense. You don't have possession of the puck. You don't shoot the puck on net. Simple. So you get fewer total shots. minimal rebound chances, and the opposing goalie sees the pucks clearly because you don't have that net front presence. Your 5-on-5 offense lacks chaos. We can say that about the Canadiens all too well. Essentially, that's all about shot volume. On the power play, you get better volume, but it's still inconsistent. What works better? Well, with the man advantage, Montreal does a few things right. They set formations to create predictable shooting lanes. They have more puck possession, so they get more attempts, and the defensemen are involved up top, increasing point shots, although we don't see them as often. We see them more from Dobson than we do from Lane Hudson. Naturally, that boosts your raw shot total compared to 5-on-5. But where the power play still fails and comes up short is that despite those more shots, the efficiency isn't exactly elite because you don't get enough point shots. As I mentioned, Lane Hudson just doesn't shoot the puck enough. Static puck movement, not enough lateral moves from low to high or east-west to create chaos. You have limited one-timer threats, right? Because of the fact that you take Demidov's on one side and he breaks a stick more often than not, and you've taken Caulfield and you put him below the goal line more often than not. That takes away a one-time option. And of course, rebounds are not attacked consistently. Why? Because you don't have somebody in front of the net. When Slav is there, yes, you get those opportunities. He comes in, he pushes. When Gallagher's in front of the net, he is always in the goalie's face. That's the whole reason why the Canadiens still put him on the second power play, despite the fact that he's only got 4 goals on this season. He's still effective at that. But other than that, those pucks don't get on net. The shots aren't taken. You don't get the one-timers. You don't get rebound opportunities. And your shot totals are in the tank. So the big takeaway about all of this when it comes to 5-on-5 versus the power play is that the Canadiens have 2 separate problems but one shared habit. They prioritize control over and structure over chaos and volume. There has to be a happy medium, right? So when you talk about all this stuff, when you talk about the second period issues, when it comes to generating offense or line changes, when it comes to your 5-on-5 play and creating shots, or your power play and creating shots, or fixing the penalty kill, one thing's for certain. They all require more energy. Okay? So as much as I listed the stuff here to change everything and fix it for the Canadiens, there's no way to fix the lack of energy because of the fact that the season is so compressed. Now, I get how fans are so frustrated. I'm frustrated too. But here's the thing about that. It's not easy to get your energy back when you're playing so many games in such a short period of time, especially when you've got back-to-backs. Now, from here till the Olympic break, the Canadiens don't have a back-to-back. That's going to work in their favor, and we should see them with a little bit more energy. Tonight, they had the night off. They didn't have practice. They got to relax a little bit and rejuvenate. Tomorrow, they'll be on the ice. It should be a relatively light practice, but it's a practice nonetheless that they can go through the motions and work on different things that need to be addressed, okay? But the most important part about this next stretch over the next 3 weeks is the fact that the Canadiens have time to regroup and get their legs. Okay? If your team is just naturally fatigued all the time because of the amount of time they spend on the ice, you look at the weekend games, right? The Canadiens had no legs on Sunday last week. What happened? They lost the game. It's relatively simple, guys. You can't come back game in, game out. Your muscles build up lactic acid that stiffens them up and doesn't allow you to be as mobile as you normally are or have as much energy as you normally do. Trust me, I've gone through it, okay? Where I've played back-to-back games in my career. In the second game, never as much energy. My brain says yes. My legs say, screw you. So you got to give these guys a break a little bit. They need to change their mentality, sure. And of course, that comes with coaching. And we know from watching practices and watching Marty St. Louis talk that he keeps telling his players the right things. But the idea here is that you're trying to change a mentality that's built in players over a long period of time. And that's a difficult task, right? You take a look, for example, at Nick Suzuki. Suzuki, playmaker, but he used to shoot the puck a hell of a lot more often. Why isn't he doing it now? The question is not that Marty's telling him not to do it. The question is, why is Suzuki choosing not to shoot the puck, right? On the power play, Suzuki doesn't shoot the puck. Instead, he tries to pass it. That takes away chances from Cole Caulfield, who's below the goal line. When he plays it down low to Caulfield and they cycle and he allows Caulfield to come up near the hash marks, it's a much better option. But the other thing, too, is that Suzuki decides to play on the left now instead of on the right, where he was a lot more effective last season. Why? Because Demidov's there now to close that gap up and allow for one-time shooting from the right side. So while the power play still effective and is still getting better, there's changes that have been made that still hurt players and their 5-on-5 mentality, right? All those things have to be taken into consideration along with fatigue, because the more tired you are, the less clearly you think. So for as much as I want to sit here and say I have all the answers to these, you don't. Because there's no way to correct everything. You can work on little things. You can point out mistakes. You can talk to players individually. I could sit here and write my graphics and show you stuff on the screen and tell you, yeah, this is what the Canadiens need to do to fix it. But given the limited practice time and the limited rest time, learning to make those changes is a hell of a lot more difficult than one can think. So tomorrow night, I'll be back with the preview of the game on Tuesday versus the Minnesota Wild. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow night.